Undercover boss purchases a laptop from his own store, shocked by the salesman's blatant lie. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The showroom was bright, a grid of ceiling lights throwing a harsh glow across rows of laptops neatly lined on silver tables. Screens looped glossy ads that promised speed, power, and sleek design. Above one model, a digital sign pulsed, $849. But the sign sitting in front of the same laptop read something else entirely, $1,400. The salesman leaned forward, finger pointing like he was revealing a secret. This price? That's just the base. If you really want this thing to last, you need the premium setup package, $400. No exceptions. His voice was confident, rehearsed, delivered with the kind of ease that suggested he had said it 100 times before. Across from him stood a man in a plain black cap and faded t-shirt. Ordinary. Forgettable. At least that's what the salesman thought. But behind that quiet expression was someone who knew every detail of this company because he had built it. Today, disguised as just another shopper, he was watching his own system in action, and the crack in that system had just spoken loud and clear. He blinked at the salesman, feigning surprise, letting his mouth hang open just enough. "Wait, the warranty isn't included?" he asked. The salesman chuckled, shaking his head like he was correcting a child. "Not the real one. Manufacturers cover the basics. Sure, but if you want actual protection repairs, software, hardware, tune-ups, you've got to buy our premium. Everyone does. Without it, you'll be back here in 6 months begging me for help." It was said with such casual certainty that anyone might have believed it. Anyone but the man standing there. He had written the warranty policy himself. 3 years of full coverage, no add-ons required. The salesman's voice kept rolling, layering on fear. Think about it. You spend $1,000 on a laptop. Don't you want peace of mind? What's 400 more? Coffee money over a year. He laughed lightly, tapping the counter, like he was already closing the deal. The disguised CEO didn't answer. His eyes flicked up to the glowing ad above $849, then back to the placard that screamed $1,400. 2 different numbers for the same machine, and no one else in the store seemed to notice. A young trainee hovered by another table, eyes darting between them, lips pressed tight, like he wanted to speak but didn't dare. Silence stretched. The salesman filled it. "Tell you what, I'll throw in a cleaning kit. Value pack. $15 retail. But for you, free, if you sign right now." He slid a glossy brochure across the table, his pen already uncapped, poised. The CEO placed a steady hand on the paper but didn't move it closer. His calm didn't break, but inside he felt something heavier than anger. Disappointment. A system designed for transparency was being twisted into a trap right in front of him. He nodded slowly, playing along. "Okay, print me the full quote." "Of course," the salesman grinned, tapping the keys. A slip of paper slid from the small printer by the register. He handed it over with a flourish, as if it were a trophy. The CEO took it carefully, black ink on white paper. Line items stacked one under the other. Base price, setup fee, premium coverage, mystery charges, labeled as system readiness. Total, $1,400. Nothing about it matched the glowing sign above. He folded the paper once, slid it into his pocket, and looked around the store again. Customers milled about, unaware. The trainee kept his head down, straightening boxes, pretending not to have seen. The CEO's pulse slowed, not with nerves, with clarity. What he had just witnessed wasn't a slip or a mistake. It was a script, and he intended to follow it back to whoever had written it. For now, he simply smiled faintly, lifted his cap a little as if tipping it, and said, "Thanks. I'll think about it." He walked out into the afternoon sun, the receipt burning in his pocket like evidence, the salesman's words echoing behind him. Some truths never show up on spreadsheets or quarterly reports. They hide in plain sight, disguised as routine sales talk. And today, one lie told too easily had just opened the door to an investigation no one in that store was ready for. The receipt stayed in his pocket, folded once, its edges pressing lightly against his leg as he drove across town. He didn't go home. He didn't even head to the office. Instead, he parked across the street from the same electronics store and sat in silence. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across the lot, until the bright storefront lit up again, a beacon of neon against the coming night. Jackson Reeves, 52 years old, founder and CEO of the very chain he had just walked out of, remained behind the wheel longer than he needed to. He hadn't come for a laptop. Not really. He had come for proof. And what he heard inside had been enough to make every dashboard metric he had been staring at for months suddenly feel false. On paper, this branch looked strong. Revenue up. Attach rates for service packages higher than the national average. Average ticket size growing steadily. But turnover here was the highest in the region, and customer satisfaction surveys were strangely flat. He had chalked it up to local management. Now he wasn't so sure. He thought back to something he used to tell his early managers when the company was just 10 stores wide. If you want to know whether a store is healthy, don't look at the numbers. Watch how the salespeople talk when they think no one is watching. Today, he had put that belief to the test. The numbers on his phone glowed faintly. $849. That was the advertised price. He had approved it himself. 3 years warranty, no extra charge. Transparent, simple. The kind of offer meant to win trust. But the quote in his pocket told a different story. $400 in made-up fees, spoken as if they were gospel. He lifted the slip again, studying the line items in the dim glow of the dashboard light. System readiness fee, premium setup, extended coverage. None of them real, none of them sanctioned. And yet, here they were, printed in black ink, handed to customers like they were official policy. Through the windshield, he saw the same young trainee closing up a side counter, stacking empty laptop boxes into neat rows. The kid couldn't have been more than 20, his movements sharp but nervous, the kind of rhythm that comes from being afraid of making mistakes. Jackson noticed the way he paused when the salesman, Troy, laughed with another employee near the register. The pause wasn't fatigue. It was hesitation, like someone holding back words they knew would cause trouble. That silence said enough. Culture was leaking out of this store, one false promise at a time. Jackson exhaled slowly and reached for his phone. One quiet call, voice low but firm. "Mara," he said, addressing the head of internal investigations. "Branch 27, we may have a problem. I need you to check the sales logs, line by line, especially service add-ons." There was no surprise on the other end, only a crisp reply. "Understood, M." By the time he stepped out of the truck, the air had cooled. He pulled his cap lower, adjusted his stride to look like a man simply heading in for another look. The bell over the glass doors chimed faintly as he entered again. The store smelled faintly of plastic wrap and carpet cleaner, the sterile scent of retail. Customers milled about casually, but his eyes went straight to the counter. Troy was still there, pitching hard to another customer, a woman holding a notepad with prices scribbled on it. He could hear the tone from a distance, smooth and certain. "Trust me, without our premium, this laptop won't last the year. It's just how they make them now." The woman frowned but didn't argue. She looked at the notepad, then back at the glowing display behind him. Confusion flickered across her face, the same confusion Jackson had felt hours earlier. Jackson moved toward the accessories aisle, careful not to break his cover. From that angle, he could see it clearly. Troy tapping at the register, printing another quote, sliding it across with the same flourish. Another inflated total, another trap sealed with ink. The trainee caught sight of Jackson again, eyes flicking nervously, lips pressed tight. There was recognition there not of who Jackson really was, but of someone who had seen the same lie twice in one day. Jackson lifted a box of headphones, pretending to examine the label. Inside, his mind was already moving faster than his hands. A single branch could poison the reputation of an entire brand if left unchecked, and this branch had just revealed more than it realized. Numbers don't lie. But people can make numbers into anything they want. And if Troy was bold enough to bend the truth right on the sales floor, it meant the system itself had been bent long before the receipt ever printed. Jackson set the box down quietly and walked toward the exit. Not a word to anyone. Not yet. The investigation had begun, and this time, it wouldn't end with just a receipt in his pocket. It would end with the truth laid bare. The next morning, Jackson was back on the road before sunrise. A thin mist clung to the asphalt, the kind that blurred the lines on the highway and made the world feel half-hidden. He pulled into the parking lot of Branch 27 just as the first employees were arriving, coffee cups in hand, heads down, the slow shuffle of another day beginning. He stayed in the driver's seat longer than necessary, watching through the windshield. Troy wasn't there yet, but the trainee was. The kid hurried inside, holding the strap of his backpack tight, as if bracing himself for whatever waited beyond those glass doors. Jackson recognized that posture. It wasn't just fatigue. It was the posture of someone who had already learned to keep quiet. By 7:30, the store was alive again. Lights humming, screens flashing ads, voices bouncing between aisles. Jackson walked in casually, ball cap low, jacket zipped. He drifted toward the laptops. Just another customer. No one looked twice. Troy was already in full swing. His voice carried over the counters, the same polished rhythm as the day before. Listen, I've been in this business for 10 years. These machines don't last without proper care. The manufacturer coverage? Barely worth the paper it's printed on. That's why everyone buys premium. Jackson edged closer, feigning interest in a display model. The customer in front of Troy was an older man, silver hair, careful hands tracing the edge of the keyboard. He looked uncertain, like he wanted to believe the salesman but couldn't shake the doubt in his eyes. That's another 400, the man said quietly, almost to himself. Troy leaned in, lowering his voice to a tone meant to sound confidential. It's nothing, sir. Think about it like car insurance. You wouldn't drive without it, would you? The man nodded slowly, signing the slip Troy pushed toward him. Jackson's jaw tightened. There it was again, a script disguised as advice, and the worst part was how normal it seemed. No one questioned it. Not the customers, not the staff. Jackson stepped away, pulling his phone from his pocket. A new message blinked on the screen. From Mara. Initial findings, 60. 3% of transactions here include unauthorized add-ons, multiple service fees not listed in company policy, receipts uploaded. He scrolled through the attachments, photos of invoices, line after line of the same fabricated charges. The pattern was undeniable. This wasn't one rogue salesman. This was structure, a distortion baked into the system, executed with confidence, hidden behind a smile. He tucked the phone away and moved toward the accessories aisle again, careful to keep his face unreadable. From there, he caught sight of the trainee. The kid was helping a customer pick out a mouse, but his eyes kept drifting toward the register. When Troy laughed too loudly, the kid flinched. When the older man walked away clutching his inflated receipt, the kid's shoulders sank. Jackson waited until the aisle cleared, then approached. "Excuse me," he said, voice low, friendly. "Do you know if this store honors the 3-year warranty, the one listed on the manufacturer's site?" The trainee hesitated, glancing toward the counter. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "It should. All of them do. But we're told to upsell. Always upsell. If you don't, you lose hours." Jackson studied him for a moment. The words were simple, almost rehearsed in their own way, but the weight behind them was real, a truth spoken quietly, at risk. "Thank you," Jackson said softly, then stepped back, giving the kid room to breathe. He wandered through the store a little longer, buying time, letting the pieces settle. Every detail matched what his gut had been whispering for weeks. Something here wasn't a mistake. It was a method. By the time he left, the sky had cleared. Sunlight poured across the parking lot, sharp and clean, but it didn't touch what he carried inside. In his pocket was a second receipt. In his memory, a second lie delivered without hesitation. And in his chest, the certainty that this wasn't about sales numbers anymore. It was about trust, eroded, chipped away one upsell at a time. As he closed the truck door, his phone buzzed again. Another message from Mara. Audit mode activated. All transactions now under silent review. Will update in 24 hours. Jackson started the engine, the rumble steady beneath him. He didn't look back at the store. He didn't need to. The evidence was already building. And the salesman inside, still smiling, still selling, had no idea the ground was shifting beneath his feet. Some companies fall because of competition, others because of bad strategy. But the most dangerous collapse is the one that begins quietly, when the truth is traded for profit, and no one notices until it's too late. By the time Jackson pulled into headquarters the next day, the audit team was already waiting. A stack of reports sat neatly on the conference table, but he didn't sit. He stood by the window, coffee cooling in his hand, scanning the first page. Finding number 1, Mara said, her tone steady. Branch 27 has modified its point-of-sale system with a hidden access tier, not visible on the standard dashboard, 3 accounts tied to it. Troy, the store manager, and an unassigned profile called Support 04. Jackson turned the page. Numbers filled the columns, transaction IDs, timestamps, fee codes that shouldn't exist. Finding number 2, Mara continued. Over the last 30 days, 84% of laptops sold included add-on charges. None of those charges appear in corporate policy. Customer service logs show a spike in refund requests, but most were closed by the branch without escalation. The room went quiet for a moment, the weight of the data settling in. Jackson set the report down. This wasn't sloppy, it was deliberate. Mara nodded. The hidden tier requires administrative access. That means someone with authority wrote it into the system, not just a salesman freelancing. Jackson's jaw tightened. Who benefits? Same 3 accounts, Mara replied. We also traced weekly deposits labeled as service premiums. Funds were being routed to an LLC registered out of state. The contact email belongs to the branch manager. On paper, it looks like logistics fees. Oh, Jackson exhaled slowly, staring at the columns of numbers. It was worse than he thought. Not just inflated receipts. It was a structure designed to siphon trust straight out of the company's core. He closed the folder. Shut down the access tier, quietly. No alerts to the branch. I want to see how they react when the ground shifts. Mara's lips curved faintly. Already done. As of this morning, all transactions at 27 are being recorded in silent audit mode. Every override, every login, every failed attempt. Jackson nodded once. Good. Let it run. In the meantime, keep customer service lines open. Anyone who calls about a refund, honor it. No questions asked. When the meeting broke, Jackson didn't return to his office. He drove straight back to the branch, parking in the far corner of the lot. From there, he could see through the wide glass windows, the bright displays glowing like nothing was wrong. Customers browsed, employees moved casually, and behind the counter, Troy was still there, still smiling. Jackson walked in slowly, just another shopper again. The bell chimed overhead. He kept his eyes on the shelves, not the counter. He picked up a box, set it down, moved on, circling the store with patience. It didn't take long. Troy was mid-pitch to another customer, tapping at the register with practiced ease. But this time, the system resisted. A small red error flashed across the screen. Jackson saw the flicker of irritation on his face. He tried again, same error. His smile faltered, only for a second, but the customer noticed. Is something wrong? The woman asked, clutching her purse tighter. No, Troy said quickly, smoothing it over. Just a technical hiccup. Happens sometimes. But Jackson knew what that error meant. The hidden tier was gone. The shadow access revoked. And for the first time, the salesman's script had hit a wall. The trainee stood nearby, stocking shelves. His eyes caught the screen, then darted to Troy, then to the confused customer. He didn't speak, but Jackson saw the flicker of hope cross his face, like someone who'd been waiting for the day the script would break. Jackson moved to a quiet corner, pretending to browse headphones again, while his mind cataloged every detail. The investigation wasn't theory anymore. It was unfolding live, in real time. With every keystroke, Troy failed to bend. Outside, the sun slid lower, the glass catching its reflection. Inside, the balance of power was shifting subtly, silently, one blocked transaction at a time. Jackson let the scene play out. He didn't need to intervene. Not yet. The system was already exposing itself, piece by piece. And soon, no amount of charm or fast talk would be enough to cover the cracks. Some lies collapse all at once. Others unravel slowly, one denied transaction at a time. For Branch 27, the unraveling had already begun. The next morning, the first audit results landed in Jackson's inbox before he even poured his coffee. He read them twice, each line sharper than the last. Finding one, over the past 30 days, Branch 27 processed just over $92,000 in laptop sales. Of that, nearly $18,000 came from charges that did not exist anywhere in company policy. Labeled as system readiness, premium configuration, or extended coverage, every one of them tied back to the same 2 logins, Troy's and the manager's. Finding 2. Refund calls to the corporate hotline had doubled in this region, but the branch reports claimed customer error or duplicate requests. Customers were walking away unsatisfied, their money gone, their complaints buried. Finding 3. The unassigned account called Support04 wasn't just fake. It was being clocked in daily, assigned commissions, and receiving digital tip equivalents through a payroll loophole. The account's paychecks were being redirected to a bank account linked to the manager's LLC. Jackson set the tablet down, letting the weight of it settle. This wasn't just upselling. This was embezzlement hidden under routine. And worse, it had been normalized, dressed up as policy so thoroughly that no one inside the branch questioned it. By mid-morning, he was back at the store. He didn't disguise his stride this time. He moved straight to the counter, hands steady, eyes sharp. Customers bustled around, but his attention stayed fixed on Troy, who was once again leaning across the register with his easy smile. Another error flashed red on the screen. Another transaction refused the shadow fee. Troy's jaw tightened. He tapped again, harder this time, as if force might restore his access. It didn't. Jackson waited until the customer walked away, receipt in hand, confused but uncharged for the fake fees. Then he stepped forward, voice level. Seems like the system isn't working the way it used to. Troy blinked, caught off guard. Just a glitch, he said quickly, masking irritation with a grin. Happens sometimes. Jackson didn't reply. He simply held the salesman's gaze for a moment longer than comfortable, then turned toward the trainee. The kid froze, unsure whether to acknowledge him. But in his silence, Jackson saw something clear. Relief. He left without buying anything. He didn't need to. The audit logs in his pocket, the blocked transactions on the screen, the fear behind Troy's forced smile together. They painted a picture more damning than any speech could. As he stepped back into the daylight, his phone buzzed again. A final note from Mara. Silent audit complete. Evidence conclusive. Ready when you are. Jackson closed his eyes briefly, letting the cold air fill his lungs. The time for silence was ending. The time for truth was coming. And soon, everyone in that branch would know exactly who had been standing among them all along. That evening, the store was quieter than usual. The glow of screens bounced off glass cases, but the usual buzz of sales chatter had thinned. Jackson stepped inside, not in disguise this time. No cap, no jacket zipped high, just himself, calm, deliberate. He didn't rush to the counter. He moved with the kind of steady presence that drew eyes without a word. Troy noticed first. His grin flickered, then returned, too quick, too rehearsed. Back again? He said, voice pitched to sound casual. Looking for that laptop deal? Jackson didn't answer. He set a folder on the counter, sliding it across until it rested in front of the salesman. Pages shifted under the clear sleeve receipts, audit logs, timestamps, black and white proof. Funny thing, Jackson said evenly. I bought one yesterday. The receipt said $1,400, but corporate policy says $849. 3-year warranty included. No setup fee, no premium coverage, just the product. The smile on Troy's face cracked. He opened his mouth, closed it, then forced a laugh. Sir, there must be some misunderstanding. Jackson didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The misunderstanding, he said, steady as glass, is believing lies become truth if you repeat them often enough. He tapped the folder lightly. These numbers tell a different story, and they've been telling it for weeks. Across the floor, the trainee froze, a box of mice still in his hands. His eyes widened, recognition dawning. Customers glanced up too, sensing tension but not yet grasping the weight of it. Troy stammered, reaching for the folder, but Jackson's hand stayed firm on the edge. Not yours, he said quietly. These go to the board, and to the authorities if needed. The air in the store shifted. The casual hum of retail flattened into silence. For the first time, Troy looked smaller behind that counter, the confidence drained from his shoulders. Jackson straightened, drawing a simple black card from his wallet, the company seal gleaming in silver. He placed it gently beside the folder. My name is Jackson Reeves, founder and CEO of this company, and I don't build systems so they can be twisted into scams. The words didn't need volume. They carried weight on their own. The trainee's breath caught, almost audible in the silence. A customer near the display wall whispered, "He owns this place." Jackson didn't linger on their reactions. His eyes stayed fixed on Troy, steady, unflinching. You've turned trust into currency. But trust isn't yours to sell. It belongs to every honest employee in this store, and every customer who walks through those doors. Troy swallowed hard, his voice breaking on the edge of denial. But the evidence sat between them, undeniable. The truth was no longer hidden in line items or error screens. It stood in the open, wearing a name Troy had never expected to hear. And in that moment, the balance of power shifted completely. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Troy's hands hovered over the counter, fingers twitching like he wanted to grab the folder but knew better. His rehearsed smile was gone. What replaced it was something raw fear. Jackson didn't move. His voice stayed even. The board has already seen the audit. Every false fee, every unauthorized login, every dollar funneled through that shell account. You can't explain it away. Not this time. The manager stepped out from the back, drawn by the stillness. He froze mid-stride when he saw Jackson standing there, card on the counter, evidence laid bare. For a second, he looked ready to argue, but the weight of recognition hit him like a stone. His face drained. Customers whispered now, the kind of low murmurs that carried across the bright aisles. "That's the CEO." He caught them. Phones came out, quiet clicks as screens lit up, recording without permission. Jackson didn't turn toward them. His eyes stayed on the two men who had turned a store into a trap. "This business was built on something simple," he said. "Honesty. Fair price for honest work. And in one branch, you decided to rewrite that rule for your own gain." The manager found his voice, brittle and thin. It's not what it looks like." Jackson opened the folder, flipping to the last page. "It looks like $92,000 in manipulated sales. It looks like an account that doesn't exist drawing paychecks. It looks like customers lied to, over and over, until they stopped trusting us." He pushed the page across the counter. "And it looks exactly like you." The manager's mouth closed. He had no reply. Behind them, the trainee stood frozen, a box still clutched to his chest. Jackson caught his eye for a moment, steady and calm. "What's your name?" The kid blinked, startled. "Eli," he said quietly. Jackson nodded once. "Eli, thank you for your work. You're going to help fix what's been broken here." The kid's eyes widened, caught between shock and relief. Around them, the customers kept watching, the truth unfolding in real time. Jackson gathered the folder and his card, sliding them back into his jacket. "Effective immediately, both of you are suspended pending final review. Security will escort you out. You will not touch this system again." Neither man moved. It didn't matter. Their silence was admission enough. Jackson turned toward the waiting eyes of the store. "Refunds will be issued. Every customer who paid for something that didn't exist will be made whole. And from today forward, this branch will sell laptops the way we promised without lies." The words settled like a verdict. The crowd shifted, quiet but approving. And for the first time since stepping into Branch 27, Jackson felt the balance return. Not just numbers on a page, but trust reclaimed in the open, where it mattered most. Security arrived within minutes. Two men in plain uniforms stepping through the glass doors with quiet authority. They didn't need instructions. One positioned himself beside Troy, the other near the manager. Neither salesman nor manager protested. The evidence had already stripped them of words. Customers stepped back to make room, their whispers filling the silence. Phones hovered at chest height, recording every moment. The once confident salesman now looked smaller, shoulders hunched, eyes darting to the exits he would not be allowed to use alone. Jackson remained steady at the counter. His tone was calm, but each word landed with weight. "This isn't about punishment. It's about trust. You broke it. And once trust is broken, the cost is greater than any laptop you could sell." The manager muttered something under his breath, but it didn't matter. The security officers guided both men toward the door. The bell chimed faintly as it closed behind them, the sound final, like a curtain falling. The store stood in silence for a beat. Then Jackson turned to the employees still on the floor. Their faces carried unease, the kind of uncertainty that lingers after authority collapses. He didn't lecture them. Instead, he spoke plainly. "This isn't your fault, but from today on, this place is going to be different." And Eli, the trainee, lowered the box he had been holding, his hands trembling slightly. Jackson noticed and offered a small nod. "You saw what was wrong. That matters. From now on, your honesty is what will be rewarded here." The kid swallowed hard, then nodded back, the relief almost visible in his shoulders. Jackson's phone buzzed on the counter. He tapped the speaker mode, letting the room hear the crisp voice on the other end. "Mr. Reeves, This is the executive board. We've received your report. The audit confirms full misconduct. We stand behind your decision. Refund protocols are already live, and communications to customers go out tonight. The words carried across the store like a broadcast, undeniable and final. Employees glanced at one another, eyes wide, as if realizing they had been witnesses to something larger than a single store scandal. Jackson ended the call and slipped the phone back into his jacket. "There's no going back to yesterday," he said. "But tomorrow starts with you. Every sale from here on will be clean, every promise honored." The customers didn't clap. They didn't need to. Their silence was heavier, more powerful. A collective recognition that something had shifted, that the man standing before them wasn't just a customer in a cap, but the one who had written the rules they had almost forgotten. And with that, the store felt different, lighter, honest. For the first time in months, maybe years, the walls of Branch 27 echoed not with false promises, but with the quiet return of trust. The sun was setting when Jackson finally stepped outside. The glass doors closed behind him with a soft hiss, leaving the weight of the day inside. He paused under the fading glow of the storefront sign, watching its neon letters flicker against the evening sky. For the first time in days, he let himself breathe fully. In his pocket, the folder of evidence was no longer a burden. It had done its job. The lies were exposed, the guilty removed, the truth restored. But the work wasn't finished, not yet. Because trust wasn't something you restored in an afternoon. It was something you rebuilt, piece by piece, one honest transaction at a time. Across the lot, Eli exited quietly, still in uniform, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He spotted Jackson and hesitated before walking closer. His voice was low, unsure. "Sir, I didn't know what to do. I thought if I said something, I'd lose my job." Jackson met his eyes, steady but not unkind. "And that's exactly why we're changing this. No one should be punished for telling the truth. Starting tomorrow, I want you on training shifts. Teach others what honesty looks like." Eli's face shifted from shock to gratitude, his shoulders squaring in a way Jackson hadn't seen before. He nodded, voice firm this time. "Yes, sir." As the kid walked away, Jackson turned his gaze back to the glowing sign above the doors. Customers would keep coming. Some might not know what had changed inside. Others might still carry doubt from past experiences. But slowly, with each refund honored, each clear receipt printed, they would begin to believe again. His phone buzzed once more. A message from Mara. "Press inquiries already starting. We'll handle the statements. Transparency first." Jackson typed back just 3 words. "Lead with truth." Then he slid the phone into his jacket and stepped toward his truck. The night air was crisp, the parking lot mostly empty now. But the silence wasn't heavy. It was clean, like the store itself reset, stripped of lies, ready for something new. Jackson started the engine, headlights cutting across the asphalt. He didn't look back at the glass doors. He didn't need to. The lesson had already been left behind, carved into the memory of everyone who had witnessed it. His voice, steady and low, seemed to linger even as he drove away. A company doesn't die from losing money. It dies when it loses trust, and trust is the only thing we can never afford to sell. With that, Branch 27 stood quieter than before, its shelves the same, its walls unchanged. But inside, everything had shifted. And for the first time in a long time, the truth had a place to stand.